there's no place like home for the holidays. And no matter how far away you roam, if you pine for the sunshine of a friendly gaze, for the holidays you can.
Welcome back to Horror for the Holidays, Stocking Stuffers. This is Jeff Searcy.
I'm Jay Logsden.
And today, Jay, we're talking about movies that are important to us.
Yep, we're tentatively calling this Now That's What I Call the Movies That Made Us, Volume 1.
Yes, I endorse this title.
A topical name for, I think they are still making Now That's What I Call Music.
I think they
CDs.
are, yes.
But, all those Gen Z listeners, I'm sure we don't have any, prove us wrong, Gen Z listeners, are like, oh yeah, now that's what I call music. I know that reference. That doesn't instantly date this show.
What are you talking about, Jay? Those are just as popular today as they ever were.
Oh my god, I don't know what's more wild, that there's like a shit ton of Now That's What I Call Musics, or that there's a shit ton of Kids Bops.
Honestly, Kids Bop thing is more shocking.
Oh yeah, no, because there are some wild songs that got the Kids Bop treatment.
Oh, speaking of, it's weird that you mentioned the Kids Bop Kids, Jay, because they were just at a rad red carpet, orange carpet event with Chris Pratt, Garfield, everybody.
Oh boy. All your nostalgia is Chris Pratt now. Everything's Chris Pratt.
I was going to say everything is Chris Pratt.
Do you have something you love from your childhood? Pringles, comic books, Garfield, Mario. It's Chris Pratt now.
I'm waiting until Chris Pratt voices all 4 Ninja Turtles in a new Ninja Turtles reboot.
Oh, fucking kill me. And he wouldn't do like a different voice. It would be the same voice for all 4 of them.
That would be more funny. This is the same voice for all 4 turtles and Master Splinter.
Like he wouldn't go out of his way to like change the way he talked. He would just be doing his same voice for all 4 of them.
Oh.
I did like TMNT Mutant Mayhem. So since we're talking about movies we like, I guess that kind of tangentially ties back in. Our idea here is we're going to do 5 movies, kind of like our top 5 horror movie list that we did a while ago.
Yep.
But we're going to do top 5, like the 5, I don't know, like most, I kind of took it as like the most important, or like kind of the most influential movies.
Yeah, that's what I was going for, is movies that influenced you growing up or even in your adult life. Because, most movies you watch and you're just like, hey, yeah, that was a fun movie. But some of them hit you a little bit deeper than that.
Yeah, my list kind of goes all over the place. And unlike the Christmas, or unlike the horror movie list, the top 5 horror movies, I didn't exclude a certain movie from my list.
Oh, boy. Corky Romano, your favorite movie?
That will probably make the second. If we do this, if we do Volume 2, Corky Romano will probably make the list.
All right, Jay, you want to start?
Will it be like 3 Chris Kattan movies on the second list?
It might be.
Monkey Bone, Corky Romano. I'm trying to Night at the Roxbury. Maybe. We'll see.
God, I haven't thought about Monkey Bone in forever.
All right.
What's your number 5?
All right. My number 5 is the... I should have written more years down than I did. Can't Hardly Wait. With Seth Green and Jennifer Love Hewitt and a bunch of other people.
Interesting choice. Explain yourself, sir.
All right. So kind of the way I thought about this is like movie experiences that I had that people like that I kind of like have stuck with me. Like not necessarily that that it's the best movie or whatever, but like I saw a movie at a right time and it just became kind of like an important movie in my life. I watched it a bunch, kind of thing. That was kind of my thought process working through this.
Right.
And so I think I'd seen this on like on a road trip one time. Like some group I was in had like rented a couple vans with like DVD players, and one of the older chaperones had brought along a bunch of DVDs, and there was The Wedding Singer, and I want to say like a couple Adam Sandler movies, maybe like Tommy Boy, and there was Can't Hardly Wait, and I just remember like having a blast watching that movie. You got Seth Green as Special K. You've got, I mean, they literally stole the plot of Can't Hardly Wait, that main plot, from to put in like Not Another Teen Movie.
Right.
Just all sorts. I love the kind of like coming of age. It's the last night of school kind of party movie. They did that again with Superbad. They did that again with that movie with Jonah Hill's sister. That's actually better than Superbad. Booksmart, was that what it's called?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah, Booksmart was great. That was a fun one too. But I love Can't Hardly Wait. I mean, Seth Green's fun and everything. And I mean, Jennifer Love Hewitt. I mean, she's a blast. She's good in a lot of stuff. Maybe someday we'll do. We've joked around with the idea of doing like a summer series for this podcast, like The Boys of Summer, and certainly we would do
Hot Boy Summer.
Hot Boy Summer. Me and Jeff, Hot Boy Summer. They have a picture of me and Jeff without shirts on. Ooh, that'd be the cover.
I don't know, that might scare people off.
It'd be but like I Know What You Did Last Summer, and she's fun in that. Even though people think Sarah Michelle Gellar should have been the final girl, like. It's Jennifer Love Hewitt. Like, what are you waiting for, huh? Get it? Like, it's a great line. I say that all the time. Like, she's great in that, but it's just such a fun movie. It's got like a great cast. Maybe is Allison Hannigan in Can't Hardly Wait?
I want to say no, but I don't remember.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking of someone else.
Let me check real quick. On the fly research.
Yeah.
Can't Hardly Wait.
Well, anyway, while you're talking, but yeah, just like a real fun movie. Like I watched it, and it just kind of stuck with me. Like especially Seth Green being Special K. It's our last night in school. We got to find a way to kind of go out like with a blaze of glory kind of thing. I'm going to go talk to the girl that I always wanted to talk to and never did, and I love that plot. I love the kind of interconnecting stories throughout that movie. It's a lot of fun. It's a very silly movie. And then years later, I found it in a $5 bin at Walmart, and I absolutely had to buy it. And I absolutely made friends watch it while I was in college. Like, it's just a fun kind of movie that just like that experience stuck with me. And it's just such a silly movie. And like I said, I've always then enjoyed like it's the last night of high school. Let's have a big party. Not a Porky's, not an Animal House, but it's one night.
Right.
Like even though they might show a couple of like days leading up to it and a couple days afterwards. Like I said, Superbad, Booksmart. But I love that. Like this is the last night of high school. Let's do something awesome. And I kind of love that for that movie. And that's but Can't Hardly Wait's like the first one that I can think of that did that. And just really, really enjoy the movie. I think Allison Hannigan dates Seth Green and Buffy. That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because Jason Segel is in it.
Maybe is he really? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, apparently he's Watermelon Guy.
Oh, man. I'd have to...
Must be a really early role for him.
Well, I mean, Jason Segel will make another appearance on this list.
Oh, will he?
You already know what it is.
Oh, yeah. I can guess.
But yeah, anyway.
One of our favorite bands.
But yeah, it's just a fun movie. I really, really enjoy Can't Hardly Wait. And it was one that just kind of stuck with me. And when I was putting this together, I was struggling for a fifth movie. And I was like, you know what movie I really like? Can't Hardly Wait.
Interesting that we both chose a coming-of-age movie for our number 5. Mine was 1972's The Cowboys. Ever seen The Cowboys, Jay?
I have not.
It's a John Wayne-led Western. Shocking, I know. So basically, it's got John Wayne, Roscoe Lee Brown. If you've seen him, you'd know him immediately. He's a great actor. And Bruce Dern, probably most famous for being father of Laura.
That's what I was going to say.
But he's the villain in this, and he does a really good job. So it's based on a book, and John Wayne read the script, and he's like, this is totally against type for me, so I'm going to take it. Because he was tired of doing just your standard hero westerns. And he basically, when he read the script, he's like, this could be a nightmare to film. And when he was done filming it, he was like, this is probably the best experience of my life, making a movie. And so the main plot line is a gold rush has taken all of the old experienced cattle drive hands out of town to California. And so he recruits they're not like super young well, one of them is like comically young, I think, just for comedic effect. But most of them are like 15, 16-year-old boys that he has to kind of whip into shape and do a cattle drive so that he doesn't lose everything on his farm, because he has to get the cows to market in time to have them slaughtered before they get too old. And it's just kind of like a coming of age story. He teaches them how to ride, rope, shoot. They've got a cook that teaches them some stuff as well. There's a group of cowboys led by Bruce Dern. His character name is Longhair. He wants the job that he ends up giving to the boys, and so he kind of trails them throughout the movie. At one point, this was like a movie that kind of ruined my innocence, I guess you could say, as a child. I think I saw it for the first time when I was 9 or 10. And so Bruce Dern's character catches one of the boys sleeping on the edge of camp and holds a knife to his throat and says, "If you tell anybody we're following you, I'll fucking kill you." He doesn't say it exactly that way.
But something along those lines.
Essentially, yes, he threatens to slit his throat if he mentions that they're being followed. And also, it kind of ruined my innocence as a child, because John Wayne's character does nothing wrong in the entire movie, and Bruce Dern and his gang shoot him and beat him up and leave him for dead, and then he dies.
Wild.
But yeah, it's basically just about, it's if you've seen the American Dad episode about roping doggies and doing a cattle drive, Jay. It's basically that.
Okay.
He's trying to turn boys into men, except this time it's successful, unlike Steve and his friends.
Those boys will never be men.
Pretty much.
Maybe Toshi.
Maybe. I don't know. Barry's got something in him.
Well, Barry's got something going on.
I'm not sure what's going on. But yeah, it was kind of a movie that it teaches, because the boys get revenge on Longhair and his gang after they kill John Wayne's character. And which, again, is a departure for John Wayne, because he usually does not get killed in any of the movies he's in. But they get revenge, and it feels kind of hollow, because it's like, yeah, we killed these guys, but Mr. Anderson is still dead, so... And it's just kind of like, oh, so it opened my eyes at a young age to the fact that you could just be doing nothing wrong, trying to help the world, and then just be murdered for it.
Yep.
So, I guess that's what made me the man I am today. Jay.
I mean, yeah, here we are. Here we are recording a podcast.
But my favorite quote from the movie is he talks to him one more time before he dies. And at this point, he's basically, because it's implied that his sons died in the Civil War, his actual sons. And he says, "I'm proud of you, all of you. Every man wants his children to be better than he was. You are." And then he dies. That line's always stuck with me.
No, that's a good line. Man, you're really showing me up. All right. It's not going to get much better for me from here on out. Because my number 4 pick is Walt Disney's Robin Hood.
Oh, that is a good one.
So like I said, kind of my thought is like movies where like my experience upon watching it kind of like stuck with me. It was kind of a big motivating factor in some of these. And so the story is that we went to my mom's cousin's house when I was younger for some like family get together. And she had already had like kids that were grown and had moved on, like moved away. So she just kind of had like movies that were left over from when they were kids. And apparently I just watched Robin Hood on repeat over and over and over again the whole time I was there.
Nice.
I just had the time of my life. Kept calling people like bustle britches or whatever, which is something that gets said. Just like a fun movie, And I was like, I felt like I needed to have kind of a Disney movie on my list or something. Yeah, certainly. And that was the one where I'm like, even though it's not my favorite Disney movie now, like I think probably my favorite Disney movie is probably Mulan.
That is a good one too.
But like just at that time, I absolutely loved that movie and just talked about it for weeks afterwards. Mom had to go out and buy me a copy of it on VHS so I could watch it because I just kept talking about this movie.
I also had one as a kid,
and it was it's the story of Robin Hood. Like Baloo plays Friar Tuck. And a bunch of other characters are new, I think. I think it's the same animation for Baloo, but everyone else is kind of a new.
I was gonna say the entire voice cast of the movie basically also does the Aristocats.
Okay.
So I think it was kind of like they had a group of people under contract for a few movies. I think they did Robin Hood, the Aristocats, and Jungle Book.
Okay.
All with basically the same cast.
But yeah, I remember just loving that movie. I haven't watched it in years. I probably need to make my kids watch it at
So
some point.
you should watch it with your kids because it still holds up. I watched it a couple years ago. I bought it because my dad loves it. I bought it for him on Blu-ray for his birthday.
But yeah, it was just a fun one. Like I said, just kind of one that like apparently I just watched it over and over and over again to the point that like I said, my mom had to go when we got back from this family reunion. My mom had to go buy a copy so I could keep watching it.
I mean, nothing wrong with that.
And I mean, yeah, story of Robin Hood. It's great. It's told in Disney style. You know, a lot of people cite it as the reason they're furries now.
Really? I thought that was the eyes from the Lion King.
No,
the Nala look.
No, I'm pretty sure it's Disney's Robin Hood. All the sexy fox people.
Isn't that wild that Liam Neeson said that on TV? I was like, wow, that takes courage to admit. I don't know. My first two crushes were Wilma Flintstone and Nala from the Lion King.
I mean, I get Will. I was more of a Betty Rubble guy.
I was gonna say I was always a Betty guy as well.
I don't know, Betty's hot. Like, but yeah. Anyway, that just kind of an important formative movie, and like, you know, there's lots of great animated kids movies, but that was just the one that like I said, like when I was writing this list, I was like, that one was one that was really important to me when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jay, my number 4 is Total Recall. I believe you've seen this movie.
I have seen Total Recall, yeah.
1990s Total Recall by apparently hack director Paul Verhoeven, according to the internet.
he doesn't know what he's doing.
He's just, he's only just made some gigantic sci-fi hits. I mean, he doesn't know what he's doing, Jay. And, RoboCop sucks. This sucks. Starship Troopers sucks.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the listeners of this podcast, the listeners to the Chris Stam's Twister episode, know our thoughts on...
Chris Stam's Twister, Casper Van Dien's starring role.
Yeah. Know our thoughts on Starship Troopers. It's not like we kept quoting it. I'm pretty sure at least 3 times over the course of that episode.
I mean, we've been doing our part for many years now.
Casper Van Dien shows up doing his part.
But yes, yet another sci-fi movie adapted off of Philip K. Dick's story. The original story for this one is called We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, which is not super similar. It has the same theme, basically, but they took a lot of liberty with adapting it.
I one time saw a tweet, sorry to get you a little off topic, that was like a Philip K. Dick novel or like short story will have some like wild name like, the sun weeps for it cannot see the moon. But then the name of the adapted movie will be like Cosmic Blade.
Yeah.
And like,
do androids dream of electric sheep? Blade Runner. Do androids dream of electric sheep again? Blade Runner 2049.
Do androids still dream of electric sheep?
Blade Runner 3, probably coming soon.
Oh, I'm sure.
But anyway, aside from all that Blade Runnering, so Total Recall, I think I first saw it when I was 12 with my dad. He had this copy, I'll never forget it. One of the reasons I've always remembered it is it looks like Mars. It was back when they were doing those themed DVD boxes.
Okay, yeah.
And it's like a little round Martian box made out of metal, and you pick it up, and then the Total Recall Blu-ray DVD thing is inside
that's
of it.
awesome.
I believe he still has that. But yes, that was my first encounter with it. And it was one of the first movies I watched where it wasn't clear what the movie was supposed to be. Was it a dream? Was it all in his head? Was it really happening? And it just happened to coincide with what was going on in the movie? I mean, some great performances. I think it's got to be one of Arnold's best performances.
Oh, I absolutely think it might. I think it might be my favorite Arnold performance.
I'd say it's got to be close for me. Either this or Predator has to be my favorite. And of course, it has Sharon Stone. She was great in it. A really great villain performance by Michael Ironside, which you usually don't see him in too many villain roles. I was kind of surprised that he was able to pull it off so well. Even with, he was really injured during a chase scene filming this movie. He crashed into a guy who was holding one of the prop Uzis when they're chasing him through like the shopping center and everything. And he like cracked 3 of his ribs. He was in a lot of pain. The doctor wouldn't clear him to come back to set until he could do 50 push-ups, and he did 30 and like re-injured himself. And the doctor just went ahead and cleared him anyway. So when they're doing that really rough elevator fight scene, Arnold was super careful not to actually hit him. He didn't hurt him, but they still made it look really good. Also, apparently, his sister was sick while he was filming this movie, and so Arnold let him come, because Arnold's trailer had a personal phone line, because, you know, he's a giant star.
Right.
He would let him come in and use the phone, and then apparently after filming, Michael Ironside found out from his sister that Arnold also called her once a week to check on her.
Aw.
So it's like, good guy Arnold.
Yeah, way to go, Arnold.
But all of that aside, so basically, if you don't know what it is, it's a construction worker on Earth who may or may not really be a construction worker. Who knows, Jay? Goes to a place called Recall that's basically like, hey, which, I mean, I'm sure this is coming soon in our real life since, you know, RoboCop future is what we're in.
Because everyone's like, you need to go take a break, buddy. Like, you need to go take some vacation.
You need to relax. And it's like, well, I can't afford to do the vacation I actually want to do. So, hey, there's this company that'll just give you memories like you went on a vacation, to your dream vacation. And he's like, you know, I'd really like to go to Mars. And so they go, he goes to this doctor, and he's like, basically, these are the packages we have. If you want to do the Martian vacation, we have, like, you could be a secret agent, or, you know, you could be rich, whatever you want to do, basically. And he's like, oh, you know, I've always kind of felt like I wanted to be, like, a secret agent. I'll pick that package. And so they implant the memories of this vacation, but while they're doing it, something goes terribly wrong. And so basically the conceit of the movie is all of this like in his brain as he's dying from this embolism caused by this machine, or is he really a secret agent who was activated by the machine, and then everything that happens from then on is actually happening?
Oh, it's such a cool movie. It's a blast. It's got some great effects.
I mean, yes, some of the effects are like still. I still wonder how they were able to pull it off today without CGI, because it's like this was right on the cusp of where they were starting to do CGI, but this used almost all practical effects. And especially, I'm not going to spoil too much of the plot, but Jay knows the Quado thing.
Yep.
That was a great effect.
A thing that I knew the pop culture reference for before I saw the movie,
Yeah.
and then I saw the movie, and I was like, that's where that's from? Like...
But it was a big influence on me early, like I said, because it was one of the first movies that doesn't have a clear-cut right or wrong interpretation. And I think they did a pretty good job of balancing it out so you could make an argument either way. And it was also, it kind of triggered me to check out some more like gritty sci-fi stuff, because another movie that's on this list is kind of sci-fi, Star Wars. It's more of the standard, the good guys win, the bad guys get destroyed. This one is more like on that gritty spectrum of sci-fi, more like in the Blade Runner style, where it's like when you get to the end and you're like, so did the good guy win, or is anything actually going to change, or is this all just going to melt away, Jay, like tears in the rain?
So I knew I didn't know what all you were going to put on there, but I knew I there are 2 that I would bet the house on that are on your list, and one of them was Star Wars, and so I was like I'd probably put Star Wars on my list, but I know Jeff's going to put Star Wars on his list, so like I'm like I won't put Star Wars on there, and I'll just talk about my experience with Star Wars after Jeff's done talking about his experience with Star Wars.
That sounds good too. Oh, also, little known fact about Total Recall. You remember the amazing blockbuster Minority Report, Jay?
Yes.
That was originally envisioned as a sequel to Total Recall.
Ooh.
And then they scrapped it and made it its own thing.
I think it would have been better as a sequel to Total Recall.
Right? That would have been good. And also, of course, there's the horrible 2012 remake of Total Recall we don't talk about.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, I had forgotten that existed up until maybe like a month ago, and someone brought it up, and I was like, oh, I forgot about that.
But of course, 2 quotes from this one I always think about on a daily basis are "Get your ass to Mars," and when When his I won't spoil too much about him, but we'll just say his cab driver sees the famous three-titted lady that everybody always thinks about when they think about Total Recall from the mutant little district. He's like, "You make me wish I had three hands, baby."
There's what's the line I always think? It's a line I always think of, but I can't remember how it goes. Like, I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but the I'm staying till Tuesday or whatever.
Oh yeah,
that's one that I always think of whenever like someone asks me like how long I'm gonna be gone, but I can't remember how the quote goes, so I never say it. But you know the one I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. Oh, and the Johnny Cabs, those have always stuck with me too. Where the Johnny Cab has been like completely destroyed, and he's like, "Have a nice day."
That's so good. Oh man, what a movie! Yeah, Total Recall's great. I saw it. I saw it on the big screen last summer at the Varsity. They were doing a month of Paul Verhoeven. I think to correspond with RoboCop.
Yeah,
like having its 50th anniversary, 40th anniversary.
I think so. Yeah.
And so they did to kind of go along with that. They were like, RoboCop, Total Recall, Starship Troopers, like kind of thing. So I went and saw Total Recall. Wish I'd also gone to see Starship Troopers, but that's.
Oh, another one I always think of is when he's done fighting Sharon Stone at the beginning, and he's like, "Consider that a divorce."
Oh man, so good. No, the first time I saw it, I kept waiting for like something to happen with like where because it's revealed that like she's in on it, but I kept waiting for like for like I was like, would it be more interesting if like she wasn't? Like it was kind of a very like interesting, like it was one of those where I like was sitting there and I'm like, it's such a neat movie because there's so many ways you could go with it and stuff like that.
Blue Skies on Mars, yeah.
Oh, what a movie. All right.
So what is yours, sir?
Well, you knew it was coming. Like I said, Jason Segel movie.
I Love You, Man.
It's I Love You, Man.
Yep.
Paul Rudd, Jason Segel,
Rush.
Rashida Jones, Rush, Joe Latrulio. I think one of the other guys from The State is in there too. Paul Rudd is effectively a member of The State. And then also Lou Ferrigno. But just Andy Samberg, I think
so. Yes.
Is his brother? Is his gay brother?
I believe so. Yes.
But I mean, a great cast, very funny people. Paul, if you haven't seen it, Paul Rudd is a guy who basically has no male friends, and he's getting ready to get married to Rashida Jones, who has a bunch of female friends, and so they're trying to like basically get him to find friends for his wedding, and. He's like, and there's like a great moment where like early on where his dad's like, if I had he's like, well, Dad, who's your best friend? He's like, well, I've got two best friends, your brother Ronnie, and then I forget the name of his other best friend, and it's some random guy that like he's known for years, which then that pays off later in the movie, like at the end of the movie. But it's so funny. And so Paul Rudd's basically tasked with like going on Craigslist to find male friends. And
what could go wrong?
And so he gets like Joe Latrulio's like a really like high pitched like soccer fan. He winds up with like all these different like these like rowdy gang of misfit friends, and then meets Sydney, who's played by Jason Segel, who's just a really kind of like low key, very very kind of reminiscent, I think, of like The Big Lebowski, like very kind of like low key, lives like his life his own way, doesn't really like bother with stuff.
He definitely has the dude influence,
and just kind of lives his life, and just and they connect on so many different levels, like and there I am sitting in the theater watching this in college, and then it comes out that Jason Segel and Paul Rudd's characters have this love of the band Rush, which is one of Jeff and my favorite bands.
Indeed.
And I lost my mind. Like I was like, this movie's amazing. And it instantly became one of my favorite movies, all for the dumb Rush stuff that happens in it, including then Rush bringing them in for like a thing later on when Rush was still touring before Neil passed, and doing like a whole thing where like Paul Rudd and Jason Segel show up at like a Rush concert and stuff.
Yes, in their green room.
And then Paul Rudd still does stuff for Rush to this day, did. My understanding is one of the last times they were in Kansas City, because Paul Rudd is from the Kansas City area, he came on stage to slap the bass.
You keep slapping that bass.
Keep slapping that bass, man. But it's
You ate Mr. Pierre sandwich.
it's just it's so dang good. It's a really, really funny movie.
That has always stuck out to me from that. Where he's like, Mr. Pierre, it's Pert. Are you sure?
and then Neil's like, I'm pretty sure it's my last name. But it's such a good movie. It's very heartwarming. Like you know, you get that kind of third act where they stop being friends and stuff. But it you know, it all kind of comes full circle. But it's another great moment I can think of is like it's Paul Rudd, and because he and Sydney stopped being friends, so Pete has to like assemble this group of friends, and like I said, it's like Joe Latrulio and Lou Ferrigno, just all these random people who showed up over the course of the movie are now like all of his groomsmen. It's such a great movie. It's really funny. It's really stupid, and it's just one of my favorites. And I think I would have loved it regardless until Rush showed up, and then I went, no, this movie's amazing. This movie's great. And then also, I think right around the same time, Role Models, the Paul Rudd, Sean William Scott movie came out.
Oh, yes, that's a good one.
And I think everyone liked Role Models more, but like I Love You Man so much better. And I think because I think it has better actors. Like Sean William Scott's fine, McLovin's okay, but when you take all the fucking people from The State, or you know, a bunch of people from The State, you know, one of the funniest groups of comedy people ever, and you take, you know, Jason Segel, who's, you know, was probably one of the 3 stars of How I Met Your Mother. Him, NPH, and Allison Hannigan.
Yeah.
Kick Robin and Ted to the curb.
I was gonna say we don't talk about Ted much.
But yeah, like you get all these funny people. Rashida Jones is hilarious. And you just put them in a movie together, and it just works. It's such a fun, stupid, dumb movie, and it's so good. Like one that I watch all the time. A slight predecessor to this podcast, my buddy Judd and I would go on our college radio station and do a show that was called Jay and Judd Go to the Movies, where one of the conceits of the thing was that our reviews were never the same. So like Judd would give it would give it 5 stars, and I'd give it 2 thumbs up. And we would review movies that were in theaters. We would review movies that we had just seen, like on DVD that we had watched like the other day. We just did all sorts of dumb shit for this little thing that we did on the radio.
Some movies we found in the dumpster.
Pretty much. But that was one of the first ones we did, and then it was just Judd and me like we were like, now we're gonna take a break, and then we'd play a Rush song, and then like we'd come back and we'd like do some stuff, play some more music, and then we'd play another Rush song and talk about I Love You Man again. Like just really stupid stuff.
You mean amazing stuff?
Yeah. But yeah, it was a fun little. It's a real fun movie. It's worth checking out, and I think with kind of Paul Rudd being a big star now, it's one that I really don't hear talked about as much as I think it should be.
Oh, speaking of Paul Rudd, I'm assuming you've seen the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer.
I saw. Is Paul Rudd in it?
No, Giant Man's skeleton is in it.
Oh,
and the helmet opens up for you see Giant Man's giant skull, and Deadpool's like, "Well, Paul Rudd finally aged."
Oh man, no, even one of my favorite wrestlers is Orange Cassidy, whose gimmick is that he's Paul Rudd in Wet Hot American Summer. So like wears like a jean jacket and like is really laid back, doesn't care, like does like thumbs up. He's like a very like doesn't care about wrestling wrestler. Like he doesn't give a shit. And it's such a great character. Orange Cassidy's like 40 or something and like still looks rather young. And somebody commented on that one time and I'm like, yeah, wrestling Paul Rudd also doesn't age. And apparently on one of the Paul Rudd's recent like Ant-Man press tours, someone asked him if he was aware of Orange Cassidy and like showed him a bunch of stuff. And he's like, this is great. He's like, I love this. This is awesome. I like watch Wet Hot American Summer too. That's a fun one.
Yes, as I say, that could make a movies that made. Now that's what we call movies that made us volume 3 or 4 for me.
You taste like pizza. I don't like you anymore.
Also, the prequel series they did on Netflix was pretty good too.
A prequel, a sequel, and then I think they did like another sequel or something.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah.
No, love The State. The State is so good. Watch, go and go watch The State on I think on Hulu. You don't get the original music, but a lot of the jokes are still really funny. You get, the guys from Stella, all the people from Reno 911. It's some real funny people came out of the state.
All right, Jay. Are you ready for number 3 for me?
Oh, I am.
It's 1982's The Thing.
Oh, hey. All right.
Yeah, I've talked about this on my top horror movies as well. But yeah, this was my first experience with John Carpenter, and obviously would not be my last. It was also a movie whose special effects have always been burned into my brain as amazing. And just it's a movie with a theme that I've come to enjoy in my adult life, Jay. Isolation from the world at large.
All right, those special effects still hold up to this day.
I mean, they're great. It's like, sometimes you wonder how these people don't get more work. Like, it's like the team that did the special effects on The Thing should have been doing the special effects for everything. But apparently that wasn't in the budget, Jay.
My wife and I were just talking about like Keith David in The Thing, like the other day. Like,
oh my God, his I mean, Wilford Brimley's in there, Jay. A lot of people don't even remember that.
I do. I remember that tweet when they found when they like drilled into the Arctic and found some kind of bug, and the fake Wilford Brimley account tweeted like, "What have I told you about this?"
Yeah, good idea. Warn them, Wilford. You know they need it. But I mean, a great Kurt Russell performance, which Kurt Russell can be kind of hit or miss for me, but he really works in this movie.
Goldie Hawn's husband.
As I say, yes, Goldie Hawn's husband, of course.
Or partner. Maybe they're not married. I don't know. They got something going on.
I don't remember.
But it works.
They've been together for a long time. Certainly common law married, if not actually married. But I mean, it was, when it came out, it was described as instant junk, a wretched excess of gore. Basically, the critics said that the special effects were good, but they criticized the movie because it was visually repulsive. And it's like, yeah, that was kind of the point.
That's what they're going for.
And they also said that the characterization was very poor. And I'm like, did we watch the same movie? Because there's a distinct group of people here, all with, I think, discernible characters and interesting characters. I mean, are you saying that Keith David and Kurt Russell's performances weren't good? Because there's an ensemble group of people, but I think Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley, and Keith David definitely stand out as probably the best performances. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, it's got an iconic opening. Everybody knows the dog running through the snow, being shot at, chased by the helicopter, which also leads to one of the lines I always remember from this movie. Because it's a Norwegian team that crashes after the thing. They're trying to shoot it. Mm-hmm. And one of the guys is like, maybe we're at war with Norway. Because, they're out here isolated. They don't get any news for like 6 months out of the year.
Right.
It's like, yes, I'm sure that's what it is. But yes, I mean, I remember the first time I saw it, I think I was around 13 or 14. And the sense of crushing isolation, like there's basically, they know this monster is loose in their station, but there's no one they can call, and there's nowhere they can go because there's literally nowhere for them to escape to. Because I think they said like 4 months out of the year, it's basically impossible to fly in or out of this area. So it's like they're just trapped there until things thaw out enough for a runway to be made for a plane to land and resupply them. And it really stuck with me too because of how it highlights not being able to ever really know another person. I think it was one of the important themes because it's like even though I'm pretty sure Jay is not the Thing.
I'm not.
Oh, okay.
Or what did the Thing say?
I was going to say the Thing would definitely say that though. So now we can't know for sure. But I mean, you never really know what's going on in somebody else's head. You just know what they tell you. And the iconic scene at the end where Kurt Russell and Keith David just sit down next to each other, and he's like, "Why don't we just wait and see what happens?" And it's like you're almost certain one of them is the Thing.
I think John Carpenter reason come out and said he knows which one of them is the Thing, and but he's not going to tell you which one it is.
But it's like just the isolation to make like that was already enough to drive these guys insane, being trapped out here for this long with just each other. But then adding in the stress of not knowing who's trying to murder you or what's going on. And it's I think also the existential horror of a creature that's powerful enough to assume perfectly mimic any form it can come across, and it traveled the stars because they find its spaceship. So it's like, how many more of these things are out there?
Right. All right, that's the thing. Yeah, we see 2 Antarctic research stations. Are there more? Like, are more people dealing with this? Like,
And yeah, that's true. Who's to say that this thing that was the dog that showed up at the beginning was even the original thing?
right?
Maybe it's a copy of another thing that's already loose on Earth somewhere.
No, exactly.
But it's always stuck with me. It was also one of the first horror films I thought I was really into as a kid. I was always into the Hammer movies, but this is like a different type of horror than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot less cheesy than those. But I mean, it had to make my top 5 list because I watch it so much and think about it so much. It's like, obviously it's had a big impact on me.
No, it's a good one. You were talking about iconic moments. Certainly the defibrillator paddles,
Yes, that is that one.
the blood scene.
Yes, that's a good one. The beginning when the dog gets put in the kennel and it slaughters every other dog in there.
Yep. And the spider head or whatever.
Yes. Oh my God, that is a legitimately disgusting effect.
Yeah. Oh, so good. What
But
a great movie.
Jay, that makes it bad.
Right.
The thing is bad.
For whatever reason.
Why do people always hate John Carpenter's movies when they come out and then they're like, oh, actually, that's pretty good?
People have been shitting on John Carpenter a lot lately, and
I mean,
it's uncalled for.
They've been shitting on John Carpenter forever. You want to hear what the reason that critics gave? Because, of course, like they always do, the critics backpedaled after it came out on home video and people saw it and were like, hey, this is pretty good.
Right. After
the critics' reviews kept them from seeing it in the movie theaters. They were like, oh, well, we were feeling, because E.T. the Extraterrestrial, which offered an optimistic take, was out at the same time. That kind of hurt our review of it. And we were living through a recession, Jay, and we were kind of opposed to things nihilistic and bleak outlook. I'm like, will you assholes shut up? You just got it wrong. You were like, oh, this is stupid. And then people were like, no, actually, it's really good.
Give me The Thing every day over E.T. Like,
oh my God. Don't get me started on E.T. Don't get me started on Steven Spielberg, Jay. I might get some hate mail here. I don't think Steven Spielberg is that great of a director.
Yeah, me neither.
I mean, he has good movies, but he also has a lot of bad movies.
He does. No, E.T. is one of those movies that like people, kind of like Star Wars. Like I liked Star Wars as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so people would be like, oh, like you like Star Wars, you like E.T. And then adults would try to get me to watch E.T. and I just fucking hated it. I found it so boring. And like, no, give me The Thing over E.T. every single day.
It's like, I don't think E.T. is a terrible movie or anything, but yeah, no, it's definitely not on a Star Wars level.
All right. Well, anyway, rant over.
Anyway, yes.
John Carpenter's great.
Yes,
Steven Spielberg stuff.
John Carpenter, good. Paul Verhoeven, good. Even though the internet seems to hate both of them for some reason, it thinks everything they've done is terrible. I don't know.
And Steven Spielberg sucks.
Yes. I mean, if you take the balance of his career, I think you could safely say he sucks.
All right. Well, anyway, number 2, another movie that I think people aren't going to be surprised is on here. Kind of the same thing that you just did. Alien, Ridley Scott's Alien.
That is a good one.
There's nothing that can be said that hasn't already been said. We also, just like we gushed about The Thing, we gushed about Alien on our top 5 horror movie episode. It's a fantastic movie. My first experience, I saw it in theaters. High school teacher had gotten in touch. Like, he's like, hey, over the summer, he was like, hey, do you want to go see this movie? And like was my favorite teacher in high school. And I was like, yeah, I'll go see Alien in theater. And it just had the time of my life. Great movie. Fantastic scares. Like the Xenomorphs, one of the most iconic monsters, I think, in movie history, if not maybe the most iconic monster in movie history.
Has to be near the top. Yeah.
And just the fact that they have gotten so much mileage out of the Xenomorph, and whether you like the Alien versus Predator movies or not, whether you like Prometheus and kind of the Alien Covenant, which is not a great movie, but whether you like those things or not, like the Xenomorph is so cool. Like and the fact that all of this came from even the Xenomorph skull appearing in Predator 2. in the trophy room.
Yes.
Like, you know, all of these things aside, the fact that like it has stuck around for so long, that the fact that like Alien comic books have crossed over with Marvel, with DC, like, you know, we there was going to be an Alien versus Predator Saturday morning children's show cartoon show when we were kids.
Yeah.
And, you know, we never got it. We did get a Starship Troopers Saturday morning cartoon show, which raises a whole bunch of other questions. But we got like an Alien, you know, there was going to be an Alien versus Predator, you know, Saturday morning children's show. There were, you know, video games made, like countless video games, countless things. And it's just how much like that movie has influenced everything around it since. Like, you know, Spaceballs parodies Alien, like everything parodies, you know, the best movies. And this is just one of the best movies. Like I'm not going to rehash every single thing that happens in Alien, but it's such a fun movie. And it absolutely, you know, like I said on the top 5 horror movies episode, you know, my wife and I named our youngest after, because we couldn't decide on a name. We named our youngest after a character from Alien. Like that's how much this movie is important to me, and just a really, really, really good movie. And I guess fuck Roger Ebert.
Yes. In typical critic fashion. Oh, shit, people like this. I'll go back and change my review after the fact. Speaking of which, my number 2 is Star Wars, Jay. And a local legend, I don't know her name, but she was a movie critic for the Des Moines Register, actually gave Star Wars 1 star when it released in 1977.
Oof.
And said it was terrible and that it would be out. I believe she said it would probably be out of theaters within a week.
Oof.
Part of her review.
I hope she's still alive seeing all of these things to this day.
Oh, because, you know, she wrote a year later, my dad was relaying this story to me because he was actually seeing it in real time. Apparently, like a year later, she wrote an "I was wrong" article.
That's amazing. I mean, hey, props to her.
Yes,
for
at least she admitted she was wrong. Yeah, but I mean, what can we say about Star Wars? Stop making it.
Yeah, besides that,
stop it.
They should have stopped after 3 movies.
Yes, the original 3 movies. I mean, regardless of where you stand on the TV shows, I don't think any of them have ever risen to the original trilogy's level of influence, cultural impact, or impact on the audience. I mean, it's a classic story. I mean, one of the reasons Star Wars works so well is because it's literally the monomyth structure, the story that resonates with everyone throughout all of history. It's a straight up good versus evil story. There's not a whole lot of moral ambiguity in the Star Wars universe until, you know, we get into the Disney era.
Right.
Everybody's okay. Nobody's good or bad. Don't pay attention to those Nazi guys. But yes, I mean, what can we really say about Star Wars? I'm just doing the entire trilogy as one thing because it's just one story put over 3 movies. And, I mean, iconic performances from so many people who went on to do great stuff. I mean, the biggest star, obviously, Harrison Ford, went on to have a blockbuster movie career. But, I mean, Carrie Fisher has been in a ton of stuff. Mark Hamill has went on to do iconic voice work.
He's really carved out a good niche for himself. Like,
except for... I don't know if I should bring this up, Jay.
Oh, are you gonna talk bad about his best performance?
His best performance, Jay? Are you talking about? I don't think we're talking about the same thing.
Okay, good then.
So May 4th of this year, Jay, this crime against humanity occurred.
Oh yeah, that weird thing.
They brought Mark Hamill, who sounded like he may have had a stroke. It's hard to tell. He's kind of slurring his words. Either he had a stroke or he was drunk. I can't tell which. And he called Joe Biden Joby-Wan Kenobi. and did a May the 4th press conference at the White House.
It's a real Pokemon go to the polls.
Yes, it's a real head scratcher as to who thought this was a good idea and who this was for. But besides that, Mark Hamill's had a pretty good career.
I thought you were going to be like, you know what Mark Hamill was really bad at? Batman the animated series. And I was going to be like, what the fuck, Jeff?
Yes, Mark Hamill's really bad at the Joker, Jay. Worst Joker of all time. Which, ironically, I have seen that on Reddit, saying that Mark Hamill's Joker is terrible and hackneyed.
I hate the internet was a mistake. Take it all down.
It's just letting any idiot put their opinion out there, Jay.
Yeah, just letting any two fat guys record a podcast.
But yes, I mean, obviously, iconic performance as the Joker, iconic as Luke Skywalker, which they still, even though they've ruined his character multiple times, they continue to have him referenced in more Star Wars stuff. And that was really the point of me putting this on my list. Stop trying to kill my love of Star Wars by making so much garbage.
One of my earliest memories is like my family going on a road trip and my dad turning on Star Wars when we got to like a hotel room, like they were showing like a Star Wars marathon. And like, I was maybe like 3, maybe a little younger than that. And I just remember the Ewoks. I remember Darth Vader. Like I remember all that stuff. And just, being infatuated with that stuck with me for years up until I was maybe 8 or 9. And I like went and saw Star Wars so I was talking to my dad, like I was interested in seeing this. And so he didn't own them. So he went and rented a movie. He went to go rent it at the video store, and they didn't have New Hope. So we started with Empire Strikes Back. So not only did I get the story out of order, but still loved it. Absolutely fell in love with the franchise.
You can absolutely watch them in any order and still enjoy them.
And I mean, I was a big Star Wars fan probably up until shortly after the prequels started coming out, and then kind of my love for it fell away.
Yeah.
But for a while, no, Star Wars was my favorite thing. I loved Star Wars, thought it was great, and it's those first 3 movies are 3 of the best movies.
Yes, it still holds a special place in my heart even after all the tarnishing over these past few decades. And apparently they're just never going to stop, Jay. They're just going to be making Star Wars forever.
Now that's what I call Pod Racing Volume 5.
Yep. Well, I mean, there's this... I literally am so unplugged from the Star Wars universe and not caring. Apparently there's a new Star Wars show starting next week. And I just found out about it like 2 days ago.
Yeah, I had no idea.
And it's set in a new terrible era that Disney is calling the High Republic, which also a terrible name for a time period, by the way. The Old Republic. Now, there's a time you could have made some shows in.
I do love Knights of the Old Republic. That's probably the last big piece of Star Wars media I consumed, was playing KOTOR.
Those were so good, both of them.
But no, as you and I have kind of said, I'm like a medium high Star Wars guy. I loved the first 3 movies, but a lot of the newer stuff I just have no interest in seeing.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the Clone Wars TV show. I love the Rebels TV show. But at the end of the day, they were trying to salvage what George Lucas ruined. I mean, they were good. It's just they were basically on cleanup duty for the terrible prequel movies. They're like, okay, so how do we move what you saw in the prequels into what you got in the original trilogy?
Genndy Tartakovsky making, because I know you're talking about the other Clone Wars, but the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars making General Grievous like this awesome badass, and then you see him in the fucking. In the movie, and he's wheezing, and
he does nothing.
Yep.
Yeah. But yes, I mean that Clone Wars series too. Again, doing the heavy lifting that the movies just didn't bother doing
to show how little I know about anything outside of the original trilogy. I was about to call him General Dooku. Combine 2 characters.
No, Jay, it's Count Dooku. Talk about an unnecessary character. Don't get me wrong. I love Christopher Lee. I love his performance. And that's another thing that the Clone Wars TV show fleshed out was Count Dooku's character. But if you take him in the movie, he's literally like a non-character. He's like, oh yeah, I was Yoda's apprentice and I trained Qui-Gon, I guess, but neither one of them has ever talked about me and neither one will ever mention me in the movies. Oh yes, and also I'm evil. But I'm clearly just a placeholder until the Emperor can get the apprentice he really wants, so I'm not that important and I'm probably going to get killed. It's another George Lucas terrible writing prequel choice that makes me love Star Wars less. But whatever.
All right. Well, my number one. I mean, everyone knew it was coming. It's Black Christmas 1974. I don't know what we could say that hasn't been said multiple times on this podcast. We certainly dedicated 48 minutes and 56 seconds, according to my podcatcher, to talking about that movie. Plus, I think we talked a bit more about it on the next episode.
Yes, I mean, we've talked about Black Christmas so many times.
It's my favorite movie. It's fantastic. I mean, there's nothing. What's as I've said multiple times. There's nothing that can't be said that we haven't already said or that hasn't already been said about this movie. You know, it influenced the slasher genre in a lot of ways, and other movies that came before it did as well. You know, it's not to say that it's the only, this was the first slasher. You know, you hear that, and that's not true, but
it's definitely a good early example of the formula, though.
But yeah, just I love Black Christmas. I watch it a lot. Like I think I've seen it more than I've seen any other movie, maybe with the exception of Robin Hood, where I would just watch it over and over and over again. Yeah. But certainly, like, it is just one of my favorite movies. And yeah, I don't really have anything else to say. Like I said, that we haven't already said about it multiple times before on this podcast. Like, to me, it's a perfect film. Like,
what are you talking about, Jay? You've never mentioned Black Christmas once.
I mean,
he talks about it all the time.
I paid $80 to buy a copy of it on VHS, so now we have 3 copies of it up on the big shelf: VHS, Blu-ray, and 4K. I also had a DVD copy at one point, so I'll need to get that again.
I mean, that's how you can tell Jay Logston is a real Black Christmas enjoyer, because he talks about it even when we're not on the show.
I mean, I do. I talk about it a lot. I've literally just like told people like, this is, what's your favorite movie? Oh, it's this. Well, what's that? And so then like, oh, you have to see it. It's
oh yeah. I'm just waiting for the day we run into somebody and they're like, I haven't seen Black Christmas.
It's happened before. It's happened a couple times before. And like, I know, and people are always kind of like, well, what's it about? And I'm like, oh, well.
Well, since you asked.
Well, settle in. You know the thing about phone calls coming from inside the house? Yeah, that's Black Christmas. Like,
oh, I thought that was from the new iPhone Google Pixel turn off your phone ad that they've been playing in movie theaters, Jay. The call is coming from inside the house, iPhone.
Oh, man. But yeah, I mean, I will literally, like, when I talk about it to people who've not heard of it, like, there's just so many, I will just, like, there's that thing where it's like, if you could give, you have 15 minutes to give a TED Talk about something, it would probably be Black Christmas. I would probably just talk about Black Christmas for 15 minutes. Like,
I'm Jay Logston, and this is my TED Talk.
It's it's my favorite movie. When my now wife and I started dating, the AFI does like the top 100 movies of all time and blah blah blah. And I had a teacher in high school who had like a bunch of different lists that were not just like AFI top whatever, but it was like top 100 movies, but it was also top 100 horror movies or whatever.
Right.
And so my wife and I had talked about, trying to work our way through this, some kind of list, and we couldn't find that list anywhere. So we went and she found like a list of like, I think Simon Pegg had like, these are my 100 favorite horror movies, or these are, this is what I think are the 100 best horror movies. And Black Christmas was on the list. So we would kind of go and we'd see what we could find. And we kind of worked our way through a handful of streaming things. And then, it came to like kind of trying to find physical copies for some of these harder to find things.
Right.
And so we had to, I think at the time we couldn't find Black Christmas streaming anywhere. It wasn't what it is nowadays with Tubi and stuff. I think it was pretty much you had Netflix and Hulu, and those were your options. Mm-hmm. And so we went to a video store and rented it. And I just remember from like that opening scene, like through the rest of the movie, just sitting there on edge. Like, like I said, I think I saw the 2006 remake before I saw the original. And I'm like, well, these movies are nothing alike. And this is clearly the better movie. Like,
you heard it here first, folks. Jay Logston can't stop edging to Black Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, that and Mike Lombardo. But yeah, just
the Riz King.
Yeah, one and the same. But yeah, anyway, I love that movie.
I mean, obviously, I knew it was going to be. There's no version of this list where Jay Logston does not pick Black Christmas, so I knew it was coming.
Yeah, I mean, literally, I don't think this podcast would exist if it wasn't for that movie. There's other great movies, that do exist, but Black Christmas is my favorite one.
All right. Well, let's see if you can guess my number one, Jay.
I was gonna say The Two Towers.
Yeah, I just went with the Lord of the Rings in general. Because it's one of those things that's like, yes, there's 3 movies, but it's all telling one giant story.
The Two Towers is the best of the 3 of them, or certainly has the best action in it.
I was gonna say, it does have I would say probably the best movie fantasy battle ever put to film, the Battle of Helm's Deep.
Yeah, so good.
But I mean, I love them all. I mean, it's my favorite book series. It's my favorite series of movies. I mean, people have said all the amazing things. I mean, great. I mean, it's something that will never happen again, because I don't think any studio head is ever going to be crazy enough to just give this essentially no name director. I mean, he had a name built up in like a niche horror community as a director.
The guy who made Dead Alive?
Yes, that was pretty much what he was at the time. He was given $350 million to make the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Yes, he's the guy who... You remember that thing where the zombie gets run over with the lawnmower, Jay? It's that guy.
Yeah, we're going to give him Lord of the Rings.
We're going to give him $350 million. Oh, and by the way, Jay, we're going to give him this money in 1996, but he's not actually going to start filming anything until 1998 because he's got to make all the props and everything for this movie. And it was like, just, it's never going to happen again. There's never going to be a studio that's going to risk that kind of money on an unknown director and on an unproven property. Because, I mean, at that time, there had been a couple of, I mean, they had done reasonably well. There was a couple of Rankin Bass cartoons based in the Lord of the Rings universe.
Oh, I love the Hobbit one. Is one of my favorites.
Best version of the Hobbit.
Absolutely.
And there was the Ralph Bakshi animated Lord of the Rings that combined Fellowship and Two Towers into one movie, which, I mean, it's got there's a lot of stuff to love in that, but it's definitely it's its own thing, like a lot of Ralph Bakshi stuff is. And he was not for everybody, so not hugely commercially successful. But essentially an untested property, an untested, at least in the American theatrical market, director. And just to risk that amount of money on something you have no idea if it is ever even going to make it to the final cut or not. And just the monumental task involved in making it, filming at all these remote locations in New Zealand, having this gigantic cast and crew, and I mean, some gigantic actors too. Like, I mean, imagine having, it's like, yes, we're going to take Ian McKellen out in the middle of the wilderness, Jay, and hopefully he doesn't get killed climbing down a mountain or something.
No, it's something else. It like you said, like, no, you don't know that this movie would get made, and certainly like Jodorowsky's Dune, where like I think they had done a lot of like prep work and it never got realized.
Yes, it just
like,
never happened.
They wouldn't do this again. And then also another thing about Lord of the Rings that like I think about a lot is, like 10 Commandments, Gone with the Wind, like those movies, those long movies,
the epics,
that have like an intermission kind of built in. But then, like, as kind of time went on, movies kind of got shorter. And, you and I talk about how much, like, we kind of enjoy, like, an 80-minute movie, like an 88-minute, like kind of quick movie.
Tight 90 minutes.
Yeah. We've talked about that. But, but studios have also done that where, attention spans are getting shorter. They're not. Shut the fuck up. But they talk about this thing. If you've got someone sitting in a theater and they've paid $10 to go see a movie, they're not going to be fucking... not paying attention. Like,
yeah. No, I'm going to leave because this movie is over 90 minutes. Sure.
Right. And so, but yeah, that's a whole thing. And it was kind of one of those where like, yeah, we got Titanic, which I think has an intermission in it, and, and stuff like that. But it was very like few and far between. And then out comes Lord of the Rings, which, I mean, I think the theatrical cut is over 2 hours.
Oh, easily.
And the director's cut is over 3 hours
I think,
for each one.
The longest theatrical cut is The Return of the King, which I think is 3.5 hours. But they all clock in close to 3 hours at least. And yeah, the director's cuts, which I would say definitely watch if you haven't seen them, are all, I think The Return of the King is almost 5 hours, and the other two are about, Fellowship is 4, and I think Two Towers is 4.5. But, I mean, so many great performances. I mean, you had Chucky himself, Jay, a live-action Chucky.
Yeah.
Christopher Lee as Saruman, which originally he wanted to be Gandalf, but he was just too old for the physicality the role demanded.
Brad Dourif is
Grima Wormtongue.
okay.
Yes, and apparently he stayed in character on set and was very creepy.
I love Brad Dourif.
I mean, Bernard Hill, who just died, speaking of Titanic,
Yep.
also in that. King Theoden had probably one of the greatest movie speeches of all time during the charge in The Return of the King. And just so many great, like an amazing blend of CGI and practical effects. It shows you what CGI, it's like another Jurassic Park. It kind of shows you what CGI can do when it's used well versus all the times it's used terribly, which gets brought up more often than the times it's used in great contexts. Viggo Mortensen. I mean, it launched Orlando Bloom's career, who went on to do a ton of stuff everybody loves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sean Bean, before he was Ned Stark.
Boo, Sean Bean. Boo.
Don't like Sean Bean, huh?
Yeah, there's soccer reasons. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so no one in our audience knows what you're talking about.
Maybe like one person does. So he's a fan of Sheffield United. After the whole West Ham, Javier Mascherano, Carlos Tevez thing, Sheffield United, all they had to do was win one more game. They would have stayed up. West Ham would have gotten relegated. They didn't win their game. They made it sound like, West Ham, it was West Ham's fault they got relegated. They had to win one game. They get 3 more points. They stay up. West Ham gets relegated. West Ham stays up because they can't win their games. And so then Sheffield United starts filing lawsuits against West Ham and basically filed lawsuits until they found a judge that would actually listen to them. And Sean Bean was like the face of this movement. And so we wound up having to owe them £50 million over 4 years or something like that for basically for them not being able to win one game. And so I have a strong dislike for Sean Bean. It's also why I have issues with Game of Thrones.
Okay, that makes sense now. It's all coming together. Jay Logson's hatred of Sean Bean.
Yeah, it's very weird and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But yeah, it's one of those things where anytime Sean Bean, I'm like, Sean Bean.
I mean, just Hugo Weaving as Elrond. I mean, we already talked to Ian McKellen as Gandalf, Ian Holm as Bilbo, which another great actor who's passed.
Yeah, Ian Holm's great. Also an Alien.
Yep. But I mean, there's some performances that are so iconic. I'm sure they're going to remake Lord of the Rings at some point, but it's how could you ever? It's one of those things. It's lightning in a bottle. You can't ever recapture it. It was the perfect cast of people at the perfect time. I mean, all the Hobbits did amazing performances, especially Sean Astin. I mean, when I read the books now, I think of Sam as Sean Astin from the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, just so many great performances. I mean, it's a book series I love. I mean, it's got moments of despair in it, but it ultimately shows you that there's going to be a good outcome to it, which I think is a message that it gets lost in a lot of modern fantasy, which, speaking of Game of Thrones, it's one of the reasons I don't really like Game of Thrones. So it's yes, it shows the world as a terrible shithole, and it's yeah, but it's supposed to be fantasy. Things are supposed to be better than they are in real life. That's kind of and the fact that the books are never going to be finished.
Yeah,
so
that's a real bummer to me.
That's also, it makes me lose all interest in it because it's we're never going to know what happened. So,
well, you know this. I've not shared this on the podcast. Never really read the books for Lord of the Rings. I tried a couple times to read Fellowship and just couldn't get into it, but I absolutely love The Hobbit. One of my favorite books, one of my favorite reading experiences.
Yes, I love them all. I even read this is how much of a nerd I am. I've read the Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales. I've even read the new Downfall of Numenor book that came out a year ago. But I mean, talk about, and you know why Lord of the Rings is starting to get the Star Wars treatment, don't you, Jay? It's because Christopher Tolkien, his son, who has been gatekeeping all these evil people away from Lord of the Rings, passed away.
Oh,
and so now the sharks feel the bloods in the water.
It's the Harper Lee not only ever writing To Kill a Mockingbird, and then
Yeah.
one of her family members, one of her greedy family members, finds like a manuscript for it,
Yes.
and releases it as though it were like a prequel, even though it's like unfinished and
Yeah.
like a complete and the same story but slightly different. And it's like there's a reason Harper Lee didn't release that book and released To Kill a Mockingbird. Like, shut the
Yeah.
fuck up.
But yes, that's why we're getting all the terrible new Lord of the Rings. Well, I don't know. I'll give it a chance. Rings of Power is really bad and not even Lord of the Rings related, basically. It's its own thing.
It's its own thing, and the
Yes.
skeletons are part of it.
Yes, they are part of it. It's its own thing, and the creepy, sexy Sauron guy is part of it.
One of my, back to Ian Holm. I mean, Ian Holm, plays Ash in Alien, and Ash gets replaced by Bishop,
No.
and Bishop is played by our favorite dude from from Pumpkinhead,
Of course.
and which brings us into talking about the Horror for the Holidays 2024 Halloween Spooktacular,
Yes.
where we'll probably do Pumpkinhead 2 Bloodwing.
Yes.
Is that the one? Bloodwing?
I think so, Bloodwings.
Or is
Yeah.
it- okay.
I think it's Bloodwings. I'm not 100% sure on my Pumpkinhead sequels.
And then Haggis, I think, is still there as well.
Yeah.
Our other favorite character from Pumpkinhead.
Hey, talk about a creepy old bitch.
Oh, man. Well, anyway, all that to say,
To tell them what we're watching, Jay.
yeah, we're we're rounded down here. I wanted to bring up that, the Ash connection, then I wanted to bring up Bishop, and then I was like, well, how do I pivot? I don't know.
Anyway, Lord of the Rings good, Black Christmas good. Check them both out.
All the movies we listed are great. I was sitting there thinking while you were talking, I was like, man, Jeff's got like all these well-directed, like big name movies, and I've got fucking Can't Hardly Wait, Robin Hood, the Walt
Hey.
Disney Robin Hood, and I Love You, Man.
I mean, these were just the ones that came to my mind first. I don't know what'll be in Volume 2 or Volume 3.
I just thought it was really funny that I'm like this is where we went separate.
I mean, honestly, I could, if I was doing my favorite movies as a kid, I think Robin Hood would be on there.
But yeah, anyway, we're doing for our next episode, we're doing Bikini Bloodbath Christmas.
Ooh.
Looks like you're gonna have to rent it if you like to watch them before we.
It costs a whole $1.99,
Yep.
so don't worry about it.
I'm gonna try to figure out how to do this with the whole where we watch it and then I write notes and then or we watch it and then watch it again and I write notes. I'm gonna have to figure out how to manage that with Bikini Bloodbath Christmas. I've never had to rent a movie twice for this podcast.
Well, you never know what could happen, Jay. Maybe I'll find a free copy on YouTube and send you the link.
That'd be great. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's what we're doing. I was really hoping for a different movie, but anyway, I don't know. Put in the comments your top 5 favorite,
Yes.
your 5 most influential movies.
What are movies that you recommend to people all the time?
And
Let us know.
send us emails. Get in touch. horrorfortheholidays@gmail.com. Get in touch with us on all the social media places. We are at horror, the number 4 holidays. YouTube stuff.
YouTube.com/horror for the holidays. Hit the bell, subscribe. You know, a good example of this, and one of the things that triggered me to think of us doing this idea was Mike Lombardo recommending Day of the Beast to us.
Yeah. Oh man. Go and listen to that episode.
Yes.
And speaking of Mike, throw him a couple bucks for your dead format. Help get that made.
Yes, we need more dead format money.
I want to say around 20 days left by the time this episode comes out.
Yeah, I think around that, and I think it's almost at 60%.
Yeah. So let's we're rounding in here. If you listen and you like the episodes with Mike and you liked White Doomsday, I think it's $50 to get a Blu-ray copy of the movie.
I mean, there's perks ranging from like $10 all the way up to like $1,000, I think. So
yeah. But yeah. Anyway, listen to that episode. Help Mike out if you can. Give us a rating on your social media or on your podcatcher of choice.
yes, rate us on your social media and then link it to us so we know what you rated us.
5 stars. Whether it's good or bad, 5 stars. Just
Yes.
give us 5-star reviews.
5 stars. Jeff and Jay ramble about some movies nobody gives a fuck about. 5 stars.
Said weird things about Steven Spielberg and 5 stars.
I'm sorry. We need to do a stocking stuffer episode on Steven Spielberg, Jay, and really break down his good and bad movies.
Man.
We need to see what the balance is between good and bad.
Well, there's the one that's about his parents
wanting to bang
Yeah.
him and each other.
I don't know. I didn't
Yes.
watch the movie.
The Fableman's bad. The Post bad. Lincoln bad.
E.T. bad.
War of the Worlds bad. E.T. bad. Minority Report bad. AI bad.
Wow, a lot of bad ones popping up, Steven. You're gonna have to come on and address this.
I mean, Jaws good. Jurassic Park good. Most of the Indiana Jones movies good, I
Yeah.
guess.
Except for one of them.
I was to say it depends on your interpretation, because apparently a lot of people also hate Temple of Doom, which I don't understand.
The internet was a mistake. Anyway,
Yes, that if you can take anything away from this episode, ladies and gentlemen, it was that the internet was a mistake. You shouldn't be listening to this podcast. Goodbye.
yeah, they just let any two fat idiot. I already said that joke.
Yes. Now we're repeating ourselves.
All right. Well,
Anyway, yeah, Steven Spielberg, you coward, come on here and defend yourself.
we'll we'll be back with Bikini Bloodbath Christmas next week. Thanks for listening.
Goodbye.
Bye. Fuck Steven Spielberg.